The kitchen smelled of burnt garlic and betrayal. I had just dropped a spoon, an accident, just a simple slip from my tired fingers, when Mara spun around, her eyes flashing like wildfire, and slammed the rolling pin against my back so hard I gasped without breath. Clumsy old woman, she snarled, and I staggered against the counter, nearly knocking over the kettle of boiling tea she'd just prepared for her midday Instagram story. She didn't care that my skin bore bruises older than last week's leftovers. My son, Jared, used to love this kitchen, the smell of butter sizzling, and the creak of my laugh when he made me smile. Now it had become my prison, my battlefield, my execution ground. At 69, I had never imagined living with my son would mean living under his wife's boot. Mara, 29, blonde and always perfectly dressed, was what the world called a boss babe, an influencer with 500,000 followers who adored her posts about fitness, recipes, and respecting elders. They had no idea that the same hand that iced cupcakes had once held me by the throat and hissed, "You'll do what I say, or I'll make sure Jared throws you in a home." I remember that night. I had gone to the sink to wash the dishes after her fancy dinner party. One plate slipped and shattered, and before I could apologize, her hand came down with the force of a judge's gavel, right across my cheek. My ear rang for 2 days. When I tried to tell Jared, she cried before I could open my mouth and said, "She's becoming forgetful, babe. Maybe it's time we got her help." I knew then that no one would save me but me. So I started hiding things. A spare biscuit. A few painkillers. And one day, an old phone Jared had forgotten in the drawer after upgrading. I charged it secretly during the nights, hidden behind the kettle, and placed it under the sink, camouflaged behind cleaning bottles and wrapped in an old rag to avoid reflections. It was my last link to the truth, to freedom. I knew Mara would slip. She always did. And the next time she raised her voice, I'd press record. But fate didn't give me time to plan. That afternoon, she accused me of overcooking the rice, stormed in with that damn rolling pin, and this time, she didn't stop with one blow. The camera caught it all, her red-faced rage, the slaps, the scalding tea she flung at my shoulder that made me cry out, and the words that tore deeper than her nails ever could, "You're nothing. You're a burden. I wish you were dead." I didn't scream. I didn't fight back. I whispered, "Thank you," and she laughed, thinking I'd finally lost my mind. But I was thanking the phone under the sink, silently streaming the entire horror to a hidden Facebook account ID set up the night before. My only prayer was that anyone was watching. If you're listening to this now, if my story found your screen, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Help stories like mine be heard. And before you scroll away, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? Because somewhere out there, another woman might be hiding a phone under her sink and waiting to be believed. I didn't sleep that night. Not from the pain in my shoulder or the fresh cut across my lip, but from the adrenaline humming beneath my skin. For the first time in 3 years, I wasn't just enduring, I was doing something. After Mara stormed off upstairs, muttering something about a stupid old witch, I crawled to the sink with trembling hands and slid out the phone. I held it like a relic, expecting to see a black screen or an error message, anything to shatter the fragile hope I dared to cradle. But the battery was still alive, the live stream complete, and there were comments. Dozens of them. Some had emojis I didn't recognize, but the words were clear enough. Is this real? Who is this woman? Call the police. Then, buried between panic and disbelief, was one comment that made my fingers go numb. I know that kitchen. I know her. My heart dropped. Was it a threat? A neighbor? Someone Mara had manipulated? I almost deleted the video, but I didn't. I just sat there in the flickering kitchen light, watching more and more people view it, like the truth I had swallowed for so long was finally being digested by the world. I spent the night nursing my bruises and thinking of every time Mara called me pathetic, useless, old thing. She hadn't always been this cruel, not when Jared first brought her home. Back then, she was sweet in a calculated way, always complimenting my cooking, insisting I didn't need to help with dishes. But once the wedding ring was on, the mask dropped. Jared was blinded by love, or maybe cowardice. Maybe it was easier for him to ignore the signs than confront the storm he'd married. The next morning, Mara strutted into the kitchen in workout leggings and a fake smile. "Coffee, Gloria," she said, as if nothing happened, as if my shoulder wasn't wrapped in a dish towel to stop the swelling. I nodded, acting weak and slow, and kept my eyes down. She liked me that way. But I knew something she didn't. The world had seen her. And the world remembers. By noon, her phone buzzed 3 times in a row. Then again. Then nonstop. I saw her eyes narrow. Her fingers flew across the screen, then froze. Her smile faded. "What the hell?" she muttered, walking to the living room. I waited. 10 minutes later, she screamed. I had posted the live stream on a page named The Real Me, Gloria's Story. It was anonymous, but I'd used her full name in the hashtags. Hashtag Mara Caldwell, hashtag influencer abuser, hashtag behind the kitchen doors. She must have thought someone hacked her, or worse, that someone inside the house was watching. But she didn't suspect me. Not yet. She stormed back into the kitchen, threw her phone on the counter, and hissed, "Some psycho posted a deep fake of me online. People are tagging my sponsors. Jared's going to kill me." I kept my face blank. Deep fake. That's what she told herself? Good. Let her think it's fake until it becomes undeniable. That night, Jared came home late. She met him at the door, sobbing dramatically, and he held her, confused and alarmed. I watched from the hallway, invisible in plain sight. "Someone's trying to ruin me, babe," she said, pulling up the video. "Look. They edited it. It's my face, but I didn't do that." Jared looked pale, shocked. "Mara, it is you," he whispered. She slapped him. Right in front of me. And that was the second video I recorded, this time from my pocket. I wasn't done. The world needed more proof. And I had more stories to tell. The days that followed felt like living on a fault line. Any moment, everything could erupt. Mara had lost control of the narrative, and that terrified her more than the video itself. She kept wiping down her Instagram profile, deleting posts, restricting comments, changing bios, and blaming hackers. But every time she tried to rebuild her public image, a new clip surfaced. Not from me, but from the people watching. Some had screen recorded the original stream. Others had clipped it, re-uploaded it with commentary, reaction videos, captions in different languages. Her followers were melting away, sponsors distancing themselves, and whispers started turning into headlines. Local influencer caught abusing elderly woman on livestream? It hadn't hit the mainstream news yet, but it was circling the edge. And that made Mara wild. One morning, she came into the kitchen with a forced grin smeared over her face like cheap icing. "Gloria," she said sweetly, "what would you say if we took a little vacation? Just us girls. Somewhere quiet. No phones." I froze. She knew. Or she was guessing. That offer wasn't kindness, it was containment. Maybe even a final solution. I stirred my tea with shaky fingers, meeting her gaze. "How lovely," I whispered. "Let me pack my crosswords." She left the kitchen humming, but her eyes had that dead look again. Later that day, I returned to my safe place, under the sink. I checked the phone. A new message blinked on the anonymous account. It wasn't a stranger this time. It was from someone named Riley Quinn. The message read, "I know Mara. She bullied my mom in college. I believe you. I'm a tech for Channel 4. Want to talk?" I stared at it for a long time. My heart raced. Was it bait? Or was it my chance? That night, I waited until Mara was asleep, snoring faintly under her silk eye mask, and snuck into the guest bathroom where the Wi-Fi was strongest. I video called Riley. When she answered, she looked young, maybe 35, with tired eyes and a strong voice. "I saw your face," she said. "I saw the bruises. What she's doing isn't just abuse, it's criminal." I nodded, my eyes burning. "I don't want money or fame," I told her. "I want her stopped. I want the mask she wears to be ripped off, so tight it tears." Riley asked me if I had more footage. I told her I did. I had clips from the past week, all of them worse than the last. Mara pouring hot oil too fast and saying it was my fault for jerking my hand. Mara pinning me against the fridge when Jared wasn't home and saying, "If you ever tell anyone, I'll make you disappear." Riley was quiet for a moment, then said, "Gloria, do you know about live stream traps?" I didn't. She explained. She could help me set up hidden motion-triggered streaming from the old phone. No editing. No filters. Just raw, automatic evidence. I said yes. She sent me a software link. I installed it that night. By the next morning, the phone was set to record any time someone entered the kitchen. Mara entered at 6:12 a.m. Half asleep, still furious, and with a knife in her hand. She wasn't cooking. She didn't see the blinking light. And this time, what she said, even Jared wouldn't be able to deny. She didn't cut vegetables that morning. She didn't slice bread or carve fruit or prepare anything edible. No, Mara stood in the center of the kitchen, holding the knife not like a chef, but like a queen holding her scepter, convinced of her power. I had been standing at the stove, pretending to clean a pan that had long since burned. My shoulder was still sore, but I'd learned to hide pain the way she hid cruelty, under practiced smiles and lowered eyes. "You think I don't know what's going on, Gloria," she said suddenly, loud enough for the knife to hear. "You think I don't see the way my world's falling apart while you hover around like a cursed ghost?" I didn't turn. I knew better than to answer too soon. She stepped closer. The phone, hidden behind the bucket beneath the sink, had already activated. The light blinked behind bleach bottles and old rags, quietly capturing every word. "My brands are ghosting me. I've lost 2 campaigns in 2 days. People are sending me videos of me of you, playing victim. So I'll make this simple." She raised the knife, not in a stab, but in a point, like she was accusing me of treason. "You're just a guest in this house. One step out of line, and I'll make sure you're back in a nursing home before you can scream for your arthritis pills." I turned slowly, stared her straight in the eyes for the first time in days. "This house belongs to Jared," I said. "And Jared still doesn't know who you are." She blinked. Something flickered in her face, panic or rage, but she caught it quickly, replacing it with a sneer. "Please. Jared knows exactly who I am. That's why he chose me over you." I kept my voice calm. "Let's hope he still does after tonight." Mara's lips parted, just a little. She took a step back, but her grip tightened on the knife. "What did you do?" she hissed. I didn't reply. She stormed out of the kitchen and went straight upstairs. 10 minutes later, Jared's car pulled into the driveway. I knew because Mara came back down like a woman on fire. She slammed into the kitchen, hair wild, mascara smudged, phone in one hand. "You insane witch. Did you talk to him? Did you show him something?" I looked up from the chair and said, "Not yet." That yet was the match that lit everything. She lunged. No warning. Just movement, the knife flashing down, the chair scraping, my breath catching. She missed. Not because she changed her mind, but because the chair tipped just enough. I fell sideways, hit the tile, and for a moment, the room swam in stars and soundless echoes. But the phone kept recording. And when Jared walked in, carrying groceries and humming to himself, the first thing he saw was me on the floor and Mara standing over me, knife in hand. Everything stopped. The bag fell from his arm. Apples rolled across the floor. Silence thundered between us. Mara dropped the knife, screamed, she fell. I didn't touch her. And that's when I said it, 3 words I had rehearsed for months. "Check the sink." Jared didn't move. "What?" he said. "The phone under the sink," I whispered. "It's all there." He stared. Then he bent down, reached behind the pipes, and pulled out the wrapped cloth. I saw it in his face the moment he turned it on. I saw everything shift inside him. Trust cracking. Love twisting. Doubt crumbling into something far uglier. And Mara? She turned pale. Then red. Then white again. "That's fake," she screamed. "It's AI. She edited that." Jared looked up, his eyes wet, jaw locked. "No," he said quietly. "I know that voice. That tone. That's you." And just like that, everything she built began to unravel right there in the kitchen where she thought she ruled. Mara didn't cry. She didn't beg, not at first. She simply stood there, shaking her head slowly, like the world had suddenly gotten it all wrong, like reality had betrayed her instead of the other way around. "Jared, listen," she said, stepping forward, voice syrupy with the same charm she used to manipulate brands and followers. "This is your mother. You know how she is. She's always been jealous. She hated me from day one. She's trying to ruin us." But Jared didn't blink, didn't flinch. He looked at me, then back at her, and asked one question. "Did you hit her?" The silence that followed was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. A twitch at the corner of her mouth. The way her eyes darted left, just for a second, toward the knife on the ground. "You're believing her," she finally snapped, the goddess mask falling away to reveal the venom underneath. "She's an old, lonely woman with nothing but wrinkles and wine-stained regrets. Of course she's going to make something up to destroy what we have." Jared's voice broke, just a crack, barely there. "You called her a burden. You told her you wished she was dead." I heard it. I saw it. She started pacing, muttering, unraveling. "This is insane. People are blowing it out of proportion. I'll make a video. I'll say it was method acting for a mental health campaign. Or I'll say she's a dementia patient and didn't know the phone was on. We can flip this." But her phone buzzed then, and another, and another. Notifications rolled across the screen like an avalanche. I saw the fear flash in her eyes as she read the headlines. "Exposed. Influencer caught abusing her mother-in-law live. Sponsorships pulled as wellness queen turns violent. Victim speaks. Gloria Caldwell's story goes viral." I hadn't posted anything under my real name, but Riley had. With my permission. She'd verified every video clip and sent it to the newsroom at Channel 4 that morning. They had fact-checked everything: my name, my address, Mara's online profiles, even public complaint records from neighbors that Mara had apparently silenced. Riley sent me a message just an hour before Jared arrived. "We're airing the story tonight. Prepare for a storm." And now it was here. Mara's storm. And she couldn't dance in this one. Jared's voice came back, softer now. "Mara, I don't know who you are anymore." That's when she cracked. "She made me do it," she screamed, pointing at me like a wild animal cornered and snarling. "She kept making me feel worthless. She told me I wasn't good enough for you. She poisoned everything between us. So what if I lost control once or twice? So what if I slapped her?" My heart stilled. Slapped. So now it wasn't fake? She had just admitted it. Jared backed away slowly, like he didn't recognize the person in front of him. "I think you should leave," he said. She blinked. "What?" I said, "Pack your things. Leave. You're choosing her over me," she hissed. "After everything I did for this family?" Jared looked at me again. And in that moment, I saw the little boy I used to protect from bullies and nightmares. "She raised me," he said, voice shaking. "You almost destroyed her." Mara tried one last tactic. She dropped to her knees, hands clasped, crocodile tears spilling. "Please, don't let them cancel me. Don't let them take everything." But Jared just turned away. And for the first time in 3 years, I saw Mara crawl out of a room, not walk, not storm, but crawl. I went to the sink, washed my hands, and whispered to myself, "Let them see who you really are, darling." Because now the world wasn't just watching. It was judging. She left that night, dragged 2 designer suitcases down the stairs, sobbing and muttering, acting like she was the victim in a story she wrote herself. Jared didn't stop her. I didn't look at her. Not even when she turned at the door and spat, "You'll die alone, Gloria. No one's going to care about some bitter old hag with a victim complex." And then she was gone. Just like that. But what she didn't know, what she never understood, was that I had already died, piece by piece, in that very kitchen she ruled. The Gloria she abused, humiliated, choked with dish towels and burned with teacups, that Gloria was buried beneath these red-stained floors long ago. What stood in her place now wasn't a victim. It was a survivor with scars that screamed louder than her lies. Jared stayed quiet that night. He sat on the edge of the couch like a man staring at a broken mirror. I brought him tea. He didn't touch it. Just whispered, "How long?" I said, "Since she moved in." He nodded, but the shame in his eyes made me ache deeper than any bruise. "I should have seen it," he said. "I should have listened to you." I didn't reply. There was nothing to say. The silence was punishment enough. That night, while he slept, I went into the kitchen alone. I turned on the light. It flickered faintly, the same faulty bulb that Mara always blamed me for. I knelt down and stared at the floor. The same floor where I had collapsed more times than I could count. Where I had bled, cried, scrubbed with split fingers because she said the tiles weren't clean enough for company. The grout still held stains not from dirt, but from me. From what she made me become. I dipped a cloth in hot water and began to wipe the floor. Slowly. Quietly. I didn't do it because it was dirty. I did it to take it back. This was my kitchen now. The live stream had crossed 4 million views. Riley texted that brands were suing Mara for breach of morality clauses. Police inquiries were underway. But none of that mattered more than what came next. I got my voice back. And I planned to use it. The next morning, a local journalist knocked on the door. She had tears in her eyes when I opened it. "Miss Gloria," she said gently, "I grew up watching her content. I used to believe in everything she posted. But after seeing your story, I need to hear more. The truth. From you." I stepped aside and let her in. And just like that, I told the world what the red-stained floors remembered. Her perfume still lingered in the corners, floral, artificial, and sickly sweet, but her presence was gone. Mara, the influencer goddess with millions of likes and zero conscience, had vanished from my home like a deleted caption. But her echo remained, and strangely, it was my voice filling the silence now. The reporter's recorder sat on the table, blinking red, capturing every word I'd once swallowed down with burnt toast and fear. She hit me with a rolling pin the day before that video, I said calmly, my hands folded on my lap. But that wasn't the worst of it. She once twisted a wet towel and choked me for 30 seconds because I forgot to wash her. Protein shaker. 30 seconds doesn't sound like much, until you're counting every breath you might never take again. The reporter's face blanched. She didn't interrupt. She just listened, truly listened, as I spoke about being called parasite, being denied dinner for days, being told to stay silent when guests came over as if I were an ugly painting someone forgot to take down. The camera blinked. The notepad filled. And by the end of our talk, she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Your voice," she said, "is going to help thousands of women. We just need one more thing, your consent to air this." In full. I nodded. I was no longer afraid of being seen. That evening, my interview aired on primetime local news. By midnight, it had been clipped and shared by 3 national outlets. By morning, it was everywhere. Headlines read, "She hid a phone under the sink and exposed a lie millions believed." The mother-in-law who fought back. Kitchen abuse livestream inspires flood of stories. That last one hit the hardest. Because beneath it was a comment section filled with stories, real ones. Women from Oklahoma to Ontario, all writing versions of the same sentence. "This happened to me too." One woman said she had never told anyone her daughter-in-law pushed her down the stairs. Another said she was forced to eat from a dog bowl by her son's wife and thought no one would believe her. But now they did. Because of me. Because of a phone I hid between Pine-Sol bottles and broken sponges. Jared came downstairs that morning, his eyes red, a tray of pancakes in hand. He placed it gently on the table in front of me and said, "For everything I didn't see, I'm sorry. But I see you now, Mom. I really do." I didn't cry, not yet. But I touched his hand and said, "Then help me help others see too." He agreed. That night, we set up a new YouTube channel, Sink of Truth. The irony wasn't lost on us. We uploaded the full live stream, my interview, and a call for others to share their stories. In 1 week, we received over 700 messages. Not from fans. From survivors. The sink had once been the place where I washed away my blood, my pain, my silence. Now it was the wellspring of my power. And I wasn't going to stop. I never thought I'd be known. Not like this. Not as a woman with gray streaks in her hair and scars on her soul, speaking into a camera from the edge of her kitchen table. But there I was, sitting in the same chair I had once collapsed beside, now upright and strong, reading messages that poured in like a flood breaching every dam of silence. Most were words of gratitude. Others were heartbreaking confessions. But one message stopped me cold. It was an email from a woman named Lydia, aged 74, from Kansas City. No greeting, just 6 pictures. I clicked the first image, her hand, swollen and purple. The second, her back, bruised in the shape of a cane handle. The third, her eye, red-rimmed and desperate. She'd taken them in secret, she said later, using the reflection of a microwave screen to aim the camera. Her daughter-in-law had been abusing her for years, and no one believed her, not her son, not her neighbors, not even her church friends. "But your video saved my life," she wrote. "It made me record mine. I'm leaving tonight. Thank you for making me brave." I sat with that for hours. Not speaking. Not moving. Because suddenly, everything was real. This wasn't just my story anymore, it was a movement. One woman's hidden phone had become a lifeline for another. I showed Jared. He didn't speak for a while either. Then he said, "We need to do more." And so we did. We created a section on our channel where survivors could submit their footage, anonymously or publicly. We partnered with Riley and her contacts to create a digital map of elder abuse reports across the country. And we launched a campaign called #UnderTheSink, asking people to check on the quiet women in their lives, the mothers, the grandmothers, the aunts who smiled too tightly or flinched when no one else noticed. Within days, we received thousands of responses. We created private forums, support circles, even legal aid connections. Mara had once ruled this kitchen. Now this kitchen was a broadcast studio of truth, vengeance, and justice. And still, the old floor remembered every slam, every whisper, every drop of hot tea that scorched not just skin but dignity. I hadn't replaced the tiles. Not yet. I wanted to look at them and remember what I'd survived. One night, as I was shutting down the laptop, Jared stood at the doorway and said, "She tried to reach me." My stomach sank. "Who?" I asked, though I already knew. "Mara." She sent me a voice message. Said she was in a clinic. Said she's changed. I waited. He looked uncertain, torn. "She wants to meet," he added. "Wants to apologize." Said she wants to tell her side. I looked at the sink. At the camera lens now mounted just above the stove. "Then let her speak," I said. "But not here." He nodded. I didn't know what game she was playing. But I knew this. I wasn't the one hiding anymore. She was. And the world? The world had finally turned on the light. The meeting was set for Sunday afternoon at a public cafe halfway between our home and whatever clinic Mara claimed to be healing in. Jared insisted on neutral ground. I insisted on daylight. And I told him if he brought her to our home, I'd pack my bags and leave forever. He didn't argue. The moment I saw her walk in, I knew the rumors of her collapse had been exaggerated. Mara was thinner, yes, but not broken. Her skin was pale, but her eyes, those calculating, performance-ready eyes, still sparkled with manipulation. She wore no makeup, as if vulnerability were a costume. She hugged Jared first, then glanced at me and muttered, "Hello, Gloria." I gave her a nod. I didn't need to say hello. She was a ghost now. A ghost I had buried under the weight of truth. She sat across from me, folded her hands, and began her act. I've done a lot of thinking. A lot of work. The clinic has helped me process my childhood trauma. I was acting out of pain, not cruelty. I stared at her unmoved. Childhood trauma? She used my broken hip as a coaster, and now she wanted to rewrite her abuse as therapy gone wrong? "I'm not here to beg," she continued. "I just want to say I'm sorry. And thank you for exposing me. I needed that. It saved my life." I didn't blink. "Saved your life?" I asked softly. "You tried to end mine." She froze. Just for a second. Then her mask slipped again. "I didn't mean to," she whispered. "I lost control." "You always had control," I said. "You chose to hurt. You chose to humiliate. Every bruise you gave me wasn't a loss of control, it was your reward." Jared flinched. But he didn't interrupt. She looked at him then, eyes wide and watery. You believe I'm trying, don't you? He didn't answer right away. Finally, he said, I believe you're trying to protect your image. That's different from changing. She opened her mouth to argue, but I raised a hand. Let me ask you something, I said. Are you sorry for what you did? Or are you sorry you got caught? That did it. Her expression cracked. I lost everything, she snapped. My followers, my sponsors, my career. You lost nothing, I said. You just stopped getting rewarded for being a monster. She stood up suddenly, knocking her chair back. People turned. Eyes followed. The same attention she used to beg for on social media now burned her skin like fire. You're enjoying this, she hissed. You wanted to destroy me. I stood, calm and still. No, Mara. I wanted to survive you. She stormed out of the cafe, and the door slammed shut behind her like punctuation. Jared looked shattered. I thought, maybe there was a piece of her worth saving, he said. I touched his shoulder. Some people don't change. They just wait for the silence to return. We walked home together, quietly. That night, I received an anonymous package at our door. No note. Just a flash drive. I plugged it in carefully. It was footage. Security cam footage from Mara's old influencer events, where she mocked elderly women for laughs, made fun of disabled guests, stole beauty products from charity tables. I sent it to Riley. I said nothing online. No more exposure. No more noise. Let the truth speak for itself. The next morning, her name trended again, only this time, there was no one left to defend her. By Monday morning, Mara Caldwell was trending on every platform, not for her workouts or wellness retreats, but for the darkness behind her filtered smile. Riley had released the flash drive footage with a short but searing title, Influencer Off Camera, The Real Mara Caldwell. In the video, she laughed at an elderly woman struggling to climb stairs at one of her events, rolled her eyes at a cancer survivor who asked about the organic skincare line she promoted, and pocketed 3 charity lipsticks meant for underprivileged girls, all while offhandedly complaining about smelling like poor people. It wasn't just ugly. It was evil. The kind you couldn't airbrush. The internet didn't just turn on her. It devoured her. Major news outlets ran back-to-back exposés. Her influencer agency dropped her. Sponsors pulled ads retroactively and threatened lawsuits. And one by one, her fake friendships faded into silence. The woman who once said, "The kitchen is my sanctuary," was now synonymous with household abuse. I watched it unfold with a strange stillness. Not joy, not even revenge. Just release. I was free now. Not because she was falling, but because I had stood up. And once you stand up, no one ever forgets it. Jared came into the room that afternoon holding a letter. It's from Mara's lawyer, he said. I read it. She was asking for a formal apology for defamation. Claimed the video under the sink was staged. Said I tricked her into an emotional breakdown. Claimed she had no memory of what she said or did due to complex dissociative trauma. I laughed for the first time in weeks. A full laugh. The kind that cracks walls. We still have the live stream? I asked. Every second, Jared replied. And every bruise. Then let them come, I said. But they didn't. The next morning, her attorney dropped the case quietly. I think even he knew he was defending a sinking ship. Mara went off the grid. Her accounts vanished. No apology video. No rebrand. No podcast tour. Nothing. Just silence. The kind she used to force on me with her glares and gasps and whispered threats. The kind I now savored like honeyed tea. The kitchen felt different now. Brighter. Quieter. I painted the walls pale yellow. Jared helped me hang a small wooden plaque above the sink. It read, "Truth lives here." Sometimes, I caught myself staring at it while rinsing dishes, half expecting her voice to creep in from the past. But it never did. Her echo had died. All that remained were the words of others. Survivors. Fighters. A woman named Anna from Texas messaged me to say she recorded her daughter-in-law's abuse and played it for her son. He left his wife that day. Another woman from London said her granddaughter helped her set up a live stream under a flower pot. It saved my life, she wrote. I didn't reply to every message, but I read them. All of them. And each time, I whispered a silent vow. You are not alone anymore. I wasn't just a voice now. I was a mirror, a warning, a testament. And above all, I was no longer afraid of the sink. The sink had become sacred now, not because of the steel or the stains, but because of what it revealed. Truth, pain, proof, and strangely, community. Each day brought a new voice to our inbox. Women who had hidden not just bruises on their skin, but entire lives of silence behind plastered smiles and quiet yes. Some sent photos. Others sent long letters typed with trembling fingers. But one day I received a video. It was from a woman named Celeste, age 81, living in Michigan. In it, she sat hunched over a couch in her own dim-lit living room, the camera pointed awkwardly at her chin and mouth as if she hadn't used video much before. I saw what you did, Gloria, she said, her voice soft but steady. And I realized I've been lying to myself for 40 years. Then she panned the camera slightly, and there, sitting silently beside her, was her daughter-in-law. Younger. Pretty. Polite-looking. But with the deadest eyes I'd seen since Mara. She broke my wrist last Thanksgiving, Celeste continued. Told everyone I tripped on the front steps. I believed her. I wanted to. But after watching your live stream, I planted a phone under my couch. I recorded her last week. She was screaming at me, calling me a decaying bag of bills, said I should choke on my soup and make it easier for her and her husband to finally get the damn house. Jared and I sat in stunned silence as we watched. Celeste ended the video with words I never expected. I sent the clip to my lawyer. I'm updating my will. And she will not get a dime, not even my broken cane. Then she smiled. Not a full smile. Just the kind you give when the chain snaps and you hear it hit the floor. We posted her clip, with her permission, on Sink of Truth. And the reaction was immediate. Thousands of comments. Tens of thousands of views. Women calling her brave. Others tagging law firms. It was like a wildfire, except this one didn't burn victims. It burned their silence. That same week, I was invited to speak at a women's shelter just 2 towns over. I walked in with a printed version of Celeste's transcript. I told her story. Then mine. And one by one, 12 women stood and began to tell theirs. One had been locked in her bedroom each night for safety. Another was told she couldn't touch the thermostat or the TV remote without permission. He's my son, she whispered. But he talks to me like I'm something he forgot to throw away. I held her hand. Then remind him who raised him. And remind yourself you're not garbage. That shelter printed flyers the next day with a simple title, Put a Phone Under the Sink. Let the world see. It was risky, but it was real. That night, back at home, I poured myself a small cup of tea and stared at the sink again. It didn't look like a battlefield anymore. It looked like a witness box. And somewhere out there, 1,000 more kitchens had started listening too. I never realized how loud silence could be until women started filling the air with the truth. Each new day, our inbox opened like a confession booth. Some wrote with shaking honesty. Others sent footage, raw and grainy, of slammed doors and hateful words that would have once been dismissed as just tension. But now, no one was dismissing anything. It had become a movement, quiet, trembling, but powerful. And it all came from the one place no one ever thought to look, under the sink. That morning, we got a package from a law firm in Vermont. Inside was a printed statement with an official seal. It read, "The footage submitted by your channel has been accepted as valid evidence in a domestic abuse prosecution. The defendant has been placed under house arrest. Thank you for giving victims a platform." I placed the letter on our dining table and just stared. My hand shook. It wasn't just content anymore. It was courtroom material. Proof. Vindication. Across the country, women who had been told, "It's just your imagination," were finally being told, "We believe you." Jared sat across from me, watching my expression. "Mom," he said quietly, "do you realize what you've done?" "No," I whispered. "What we've done." Then I opened the next email. It was from someone using the alias Dandelion Blue. No name, just a voice note. I hit play. A young woman spoke, early 30s, maybe younger. She said she wasn't a victim of elder abuse. She was the daughter of a woman who had suffered it in silence. Her grandmother, the abuser, had been celebrated by the family, while her mother had quietly deteriorated over the years. "I watched your videos with my mom," she said through tears. She hasn't spoken in days, but when she saw yours, she whispered, "I wasn't weak. I was alone." Thank you, Gloria. Thank you for giving her back her voice. I played that message 4 times. Not for validation, but for reverence. Because there it was, the quiet proof that pain travels generations unless someone cuts the cord. And I was determined to be the one who did. Later that evening, Riley called. She said a major network wanted to do a feature documentary on our work. They want to title it The Hidden Phone, she said. Do you approve? I thought about that phrase, hidden phone, and what it used to mean. Secrecy. Desperation. Now it meant power. Justice. Light. Let them tell it, I said. But tell it truthfully. She promised they would. I walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and stood before the sink again. My reflection in the faucet wasn't the same woman from weeks ago. That woman had trembled when her name was called. This woman? She was calling out the names of others. I touched the wooden plaque above the sink. Truth lives here. And in hundreds of homes across the country, the same truth was being quietly captured. The silence was ending, one hidden phone at a time. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not the air, but the energy, the kind that reminded me of empty holidays and long silences at dinner when Mara sat at the head of the table pretending to be daughter-in-law of the year. But now she wasn't holding a wine glass or phone camera. She was sitting at a defense table, flanked by a lawyer who looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. Jared sat beside me, gripping my hand tightly. Riley was behind us with her press credentials. The judge entered. The bailiff called the room to order. And suddenly, the weight of every bruise, every burn, every scraped tile beneath my knees came crashing back through my chest. I was asked to testify not against Mara, but for a different case. One that had grown from the roots of mine. The Vermont woman, the one who'd used footage from our platform, was finally getting her day in court. Her daughter-in-law had claimed elder neglect and manipulation, but the hidden footage told another story. Her daughter-in-law yelling at her to crawl on the floor because she walked too loud, mocking her for needing help with her walker, saying things like, "The only reason you're still breathing is because your check hasn't cleared." The judge had allowed our footage as foundational evidence. The precedent had been set. My live stream, my footage, my kitchen had become the first domino. I stood in the witness box, my palms steady, my voice low but firm. I told the court what Mara had done. I spoke in the same tone she had once tried to break, the same voice she said was too shrill, too dramatic, too much. But this time, every word hit like thunder in a silent sky. The courtroom watched my live stream. The gasps came at the tea splash, at the slap, at the way Mara's voice didn't crack until she realized she'd been recorded. At the end, the judge leaned back and said, "This case changes things." When I stepped down, the other woman, Caroline, reached out from the plaintiff's bench and touched my arm gently. "You saved me," she said. I shook my head. "No, you saved yourself. I just helped turn up the volume." The court ruled in Caroline's favor. Her abuser lost custody of her home, was fined, and had restrictions placed on future contact. It wasn't just justice. It was correction. A long overdue course correction. And Mara? She watched it all. She had no reason to be there. But she came. Sat in the back. Sunglasses. Hoodie. Trying to blend into a world she once ruled from a phone screen. I caught her eye. She didn't look away. But she didn't smile either. Her expression wasn't anger. It was recognition. She knew she was no longer the loudest voice in the room. And that was her sentence, worse than anything legal. When we got home, Jared asked, "Do you feel proud?" I said, "I feel useful." And for a woman my age, after all that silence, usefulness feels like resurrection. I opened our inbox that night. There were 112 new messages. I read the first line of one. I haven't told anyone this before. I closed my laptop and looked at the sink. The same place I once hid my fear, now a monument to all the women finally speaking up. It started with a letter, an actual paper letter delivered by mail, thick envelope, gold trim, the kind I hadn't seen in years. For a second, I thought it was some invitation to a reunion or memorial. But when I opened it, I saw something else entirely. It was from the National Women's Advocacy Summit, inviting me to be a keynote speaker. Me, Gloria Caldwell. Not a politician. Not a professor. Not an activist with a name people recognized before the internet cracked open my story. Just a woman who once hid a phone under the sink and whispered into it like it was my last friend in the world. I read the letter 5 times. Then I showed it to Jared. He laughed, nervously, gently, and said, "Mom, you're famous now." I didn't feel famous. I felt fragile. But I also felt something I hadn't in years, called. That night I stood in front of the mirror in my bedroom and practiced my speech. I didn't recite notes. I just talked. Talked about the sound a rolling pin makes when it hits skin. About the smell of burnt tea that still made my stomach twist. About how silence can suffocate you one quiet apology at a time. And about how one hidden phone shattered it all. When I arrived at the summit, I expected maybe a dozen people in folding chairs. What I found was a packed auditorium. Women in every row. Some young, some my age, some older. All with that same look in their eyes. I've lived it too. When they introduced me, they didn't say influencer or survivor. They said, a woman who turned her pain into power for thousands. I walked up to the podium slowly, holding the wood like it might steady the earthquake beneath my ribs. Then I looked out and said, "You know me. Maybe not by name, but by bruise. By silence. By that scream you swallowed at midnight so the children wouldn't hear." The room went still. I continued, "I didn't go viral because I wanted attention. I went viral because I wanted witnesses. I didn't want anyone to rescue me, I wanted someone to see. That's what the sink gave me. Not escape, but evidence." As I spoke, I watched their faces change, eyes widened, lips pressed, some nodding, some crying, some clutching the arm of the woman beside them. And when I ended with this, "We're not fragile. We're forged," the applause didn't come in bursts. It rose like a wave. That night, they presented me with an award glass, etched with the words, "Voice of the Silenced." I took it home and placed it above the sink, right beside the plaque Jared had made. And as I stood there in the soft hum of a quiet house, I realized something. I had once been terrified of this kitchen. Now it was my podium. And my podium was giving other women permission to speak. Fame is a strange thing when it's born from trauma. You don't ask for it. You don't wear it. It wears you. That's how it felt being stopped on the street, in grocery aisles, even at the pharmacy by women who whispered, "You're the sink lady, you saved me." I never knew what to say. I wasn't a hero. I was just someone who got tired of bleeding quietly. But not everyone wanted me to stay in the light. Especially her. It started with a blog post. Written anonymously, but I recognized the voice. It claimed the whole live stream had been an orchestrated scam, that I had rehearsed the abuse, manipulated my son, and used elder sympathy to ruin an innocent woman's life. Then came a podcast episode. A faceless friend of Mara's claiming to have seen me slap her once years ago. Then someone leaked my old tax issues, things from decades ago, long settled. She wanted to smear me, pull me back into the shadows where shame silenced truth. But she made one mistake. She underestimated how many others now stood beside me. Within hours, Riley traced the blog to an IP linked to Mara's old PR manager. The podcast guest? A paid voice actor. And the tax leak? Debunked by an investigative journalist from one of the very platforms Mara used to beg for sponsors. For every lie she threw at me, 10 more women stepped forward to drown it out with truth. One woman posted a video reading from her own diary. "If Gloria hadn't spoken up, I'd still be hiding bruises under long sleeves in August." Another survivor in her 70s stitched together her hospital reports into a short documentary, captioned, "Inspired by the hidden phone." The world didn't fall for Mara's comeback attempt. In fact, it responded louder than I ever could have. We don't follow influencers anymore. We follow courage. And courage wasn't something you could fake with hashtags or crying selfies. It came from the nights you couldn't breathe, but still chose not to scream because even silence had dignity when there was no one left to listen. Jared looked at me that night as we shut off the news. She's never going to stop trying, is she? He asked. Maybe not, I said. But now, neither will we. The platform we'd built had grown beyond us. A legal nonprofit contacted us to create the SyncWatch program, a nationwide, anonymous evidence-gathering tool for victims too afraid to speak aloud. And I, Gloria Caldwell, who once cleaned blood from tile with shaking hands, now sat on the advisory board. I didn't fight Mara with fists. I fought her with memory. And I had the whole world remembering with me. It was a conference hall in Chicago, 3 stories high, glass ceilings, polished floors that clicked with the sound of important people walking somewhere fast. I had been invited to speak again. Only this time, it wasn't just women in the room. Lawmakers were there. Tech CEOs. Judges. Even officers from elder care units and social welfare departments. I had become something I never expected, a name in their mouths. And for once, it wasn't poor thing or troublemaker or crazy old lady. It was just Gloria. They said it like it meant something. Like I meant something. I stood at that podium again, hands calm, voice clear. I am not here today because I was brave, I began. I'm here because I ran out of fear. That got their attention. And when a woman runs out of fear, you'd be wise to either stand with her or get out of her way. I talked about the laws that still failed us. About the silence that still cost lives. About the bruises that faded too quickly for cameras and the words that stuck longer than any scar. Then I said something that made them all lean forward. There are cameras in every hallway, every store, every traffic light. But when abuse happens in kitchens, bedrooms, nursing homes, behind smiling Instagram posts, no one's watching. So we watch for each other now. Afterward, they shook my hand. One senator said she'd propose new legislation. A tech executive promised to fund a new safety app. But what struck me most was the woman in janitor's uniform who found me by the restroom, eyes damp. My daughter-in-law once made me clean vomit from the carpet with a toothbrush, she whispered. I never told a soul. Until I saw you. She didn't ask for a photo. She didn't want a signature. She just wanted to be seen. And she was. That evening, on the flight home, I stared out at the clouds and thought about the version of myself that used to kneel at the sink, swallowing sobs so Jared wouldn't hear. I whispered to her in my head, you were never invisible. You were just waiting for the world to open its eyes. Jared met me at the airport. He carried my bag. Told me dinner was already warm. And for the first time in a long time, I walked into our house without holding my breath. The sink was still there. Same faucet. Same old tiles. But it didn't haunt me anymore. It honored me. I made a cup of tea and stood in front of it for a moment longer, staring at my reflection. Hello, Gloria, I said to myself softly. And this time, it felt like the world was saying it back. It happened late one night, not during a speech, not under the lights of a stage, not with applause waiting at the end. It was just us, Jared and me, sitting in the kitchen with nothing but a dim lamp glowing against the sink and 2 cups of untouched tea growing cold between us. He looked tired, more tired than I'd seen him in months. And something in his face told me that whatever he was about to say had been sitting in him for years. Mom, he began, not looking at me. There's something I need to say, and I don't think you're going to like it. My heart paused. I nodded slowly. Say it. He took a deep breath and rubbed his hands together like they were dirty with guilt. The night I first saw the bruises on your wrist, I knew something was wrong. Mara said you tripped over the mop bucket. But deep down, I didn't believe her. He finally looked up, and the pain in his eyes was a mirror of my own. I didn't believe her, Mom. I just didn't want to believe you. Because if I did, I'd have to admit I brought a monster into your home. My throat tightened. Not from anger. From sorrow. Because in that moment, I realized what silence had cost him, too. He wasn't just blind, he was scared. Scared of facing the truth he already knew. There were signs, he continued. The coldness, the way she'd raise her voice when she thought I wasn't around. I even saw you flinch once when she reached for the salt. He buried his face in his hands. I just told myself you were imagining it. That you were old and stressed and jealous. I reached across the table, placed my hand over his. You were protecting your illusion, I said gently. We all do that when we're not ready to face the fire. He looked up, his eyes glistening. I should have protected you. You are now, I whispered. And that's what matters. Silence filled the room, but this silence was different. This silence was healing. And then, for the first time, Jared told me something I had never known. That night, he said, when I found you on the floor with the knife nearby, I knew it wasn't an accident. And I knew she didn't just snap. She planned that outburst. She was scared. Because somewhere, she knew she'd been caught. I nodded slowly. She always knew the camera was coming. She just didn't know when. He looked around the kitchen. I used to think this place was warm because you filled it with love. Then she made it cold. But you made it sacred again, Mom. You reclaimed it. I squeezed his hand. No, Jared. We did. That night, he stayed in the guest room. Not out of duty, but love. Real love. The kind that takes responsibility and doesn't ask for forgiveness, but earns it. I went to bed feeling heavier with truth, but lighter with peace. And as I drifted into sleep, I whispered the words I had once only said into a hidden phone under the sink. You are not alone anymore. It was a quiet Wednesday afternoon, the kind that used to feel heavy with loneliness. I was folding laundry near the window when I noticed something: 3 women standing outside my house, hesitant, almost unsure if they should knock. One held a notebook. Another, a bouquet of small wildflowers. The third just had her hands clenched tightly in front of her chest. I opened the door before they could gather the courage. Are you here for me? I asked gently. The woman with the notebook nodded. You're Gloria Caldwell, right? From the live stream? I nodded, and they all exhaled at once, like they'd been holding their breath since their cities, their living rooms, their pain. We don't mean to intrude, one of them said quickly. We're from different states. We met in an online support group created through your channel. We call ourselves the Under the Sink Sisters. I smiled at that. It was so absurdly beautiful I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. We wanted to meet you, said the one with the flowers. To say thank you. And to ask how we can help more women like us. I let them in. We drank tea. We didn't talk about our scars, not directly. We didn't need to. It was in the way we poured tea for each other, the way we asked about allergies, the way we kept checking that everyone was comfortable. Care had become our language. And somewhere in that hour, a new idea was born. What if, one of them asked, we created something more permanent? A place for women like us. Not just a hotline or a shelter, but a home. A space built from our stories. My heart stirred. You mean, like a real house? Yes, they said. A house where no one ever has to hide a phone under a sink again. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was filled with shared resolve. Over the next few weeks, we began gathering volunteers, legal support, and funds. Riley helped us launch a national campaign called House of Witness. Survivors sent in small donations, love letters, pieces of poetry, even stained aprons and broken spatulas as symbols of what they endured and what they escaped. We found an old boarding house on the edge of town. Jared helped clean it up, repair walls, repaint every room in light yellows and soft blues. We hung a plaque above the door that read, "Here, you are seen." And above the kitchen sink? A glass-encased phone, mine. The very one that started it all. Women began arriving. Quiet at first, then braver. Some stayed for a night, some for months. Some just came to sit in the garden. No cameras. No press. No noise. Just healing. Just truth. I wasn't a landlord. I was a witness. A grandmother. A listener. And for the first time in my life, I felt like the deepest wounds I carried had become tools in someone else's rescue. We didn't save the world. We just opened the door. And sometimes, that's enough. For years, Thanksgiving had been my quietest scream. A table set for people who didn't see me, food seasoned with silence, smiles as fake as the gratitude in the air. Mara used to host like it was a performance, photos before prayer, cruelty after dessert. But this year was different. This year, I was setting the table in my house, with my hands, for people who saw me. Jared helped me in the kitchen. The Under the Sink sisters flew in from across the country, 5 of them, each stronger than the last. Riley brought her mother. Even Celeste, at 81, arrived with her cane and a smile so full of light it softened the corners of every room. And just before dinner, someone knocked on the door. It was the last person I expected. Mara. No makeup. No cameras. Just her. Hair flat, eyes raw, a piece of paper in her hand. Jared stepped forward instinctively. "Don't," I whispered. "Let her speak." She looked at me and said, "I'm not here for sympathy. I'm here to say I understand now. What I did. What I took. What I destroyed. And I'll carry it forever." She held up the paper. "It's a confession. Every word. Every bruise. Signed." I sent a copy to the DA's office. My stomach turned. "Why no?" "Because I watched the new livestream," she said quietly. "The one from your housewarming. When you stood in front of that old sink and said, 'This is where I was silenced. And this is where I began to speak.' I've never hated myself more than I did in that moment." The room behind me was still. The air thick. "I don't expect forgiveness," she added. "But I wanted you to know I won't run from what I've done anymore." Then she turned to leave. "Wait," I said. She froze. "You don't get a seat at this table," I said. "But you get to walk away with the truth on your back now. Carry it well." She nodded, wiped her cheek, and left. Jared stood beside me, unsure. "Did we do the right thing?" he asked. I stared at the door, then the paper in my hand. We didn't forgive her. But we unburdened ourselves. That night, we sat at the table, passing dishes and stories. No screaming. No fear. Just laughter and softness and stories told without shame. At the end of the meal, I stood up and raised my glass. To the women who hid phones under sinks. To the women who lived in whispers. To the women who walked through fire and sat back down at the table with grace. This is our Thanksgiving now. The clinking of glasses echoed like thunder through every silent year I had survived. And as I looked around at the full table, I knew the revenge wasn't the exposure. The revenge was the healing. Before you hear the end of my story, let me ask you something. Where are you listening from? Which kitchen? Which quiet room? Which city or town where someone might be hiding the truth behind a locked door or a forced smile? Because if you're still here, if you've listened this far, you know this isn't just my story. This is ours. I was 70 years old when I hid that phone under the sink, 70, with hands that shook from trauma more than age, bones that had bent under decades of silence. I didn't have a plan. I didn't think I'd survive long enough to tell you this. But I did. And now I get letters from women who use my name like armor. I get calls from shelters naming wings after me. And I don't say that for pride. I say it because one day I was nothing more than a shadow in someone else's home. Today, I'm a voice you recognize. And if I can rise, so can you. The House of Witness is growing. We have branches in 6 states now. Our platform, Sink of Truth, crossed 1 million verified subscribers last week. Not because we went viral, but because we stayed honest. We're building something permanent, an archive of survival, of proof of women who were not crazy, not dramatic, not imagining things. We were right. And we remember. I still live in the same house. I never moved. Because I believe in reclaiming space. My sink doesn't scare me anymore. It reflects me. The bruises faded. The tile was replaced. But the story, the truth, was never buried. Jared visits every weekend. He brings my grandkids now. And when they ask about the phone under the glass box above the kitchen counter, I tell them that phone saved my life. One day, my granddaughter will grow up and learn that I was once beaten for burning toast. That I was once called useless by someone who smiled on magazine covers. And she'll also learn that I stood up. That I changed laws. That I changed minds. And that she comes from a line of women who don't just survive fire, we speak from the ashes. So if you're listening now, if you've ever been silenced, bruised, or made to feel invisible, I believe you. I see you. And if you're still hiding your phone under the sink, maybe tonight's the night you press record. If you found strength in my voice, then use yours. Like, share, subscribe. And before you go, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? Because somewhere, a woman just like me is still waiting to be heard, and your story might be the one that gives her the courage to speak. This was Gloria Caldwell. And this was the truth beneath the sink.